can't see any of you, but I hope you enjoyed Avatar Fire Nash. All right. My name's Pete Hammond. I'm going to moderate tonight, and we've got a big panel here, as you can tell. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to the Weta Effects Senior Animation Supervisor, Daniel Barrett. The Weta Effects Senior Visual Effects Supervisor, Eric Saindon. Visual Effects Supervisor, Richard Baneham. Film Editor, Stephen Rivkin. Costume Designer, Deborah L. Scott. Production Designer, Ben Procter. And then you know this guy, Director, Producer, Editor, and Writer, James Cameron. All right. Congratulations. Opening night, it's exciting after all these years, and you're here, and the reaction's great. Just heard a cinema score backstage, making lots of money, Jim. Is this what you've always hoped for?
It's not about, we gotta pay the bills on this sucker. We spent a lot of money.
It is a lot, but this is like a team effort, as you can tell here, with everybody. This is number 3, obviously. I believe you planned on 4 and 5, but I know from talking to you, we'll see, basically, how it goes.
Definitely a we'll see situation, yeah.
Yeah. But I called this in my review a kick-ass action movie. Kick-ass. In so many ways, like a big war movie, yet it's got just so much emotion. I think more emotion I noticed this time than the previous 2 films even. And that's the most important thing, the character development.
I don't think we need to be here. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, but that's important with the actors here, the performance capture, which a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, well, let me do 30 seconds on that. I know our time's limited here, but, you know, we really put the hammer down on R&D to perfect the pipeline, all of us involved with that, Richie, Eric, and Dan, to perfect that pipeline, to get every nuance of the actor's performance. Even, you know, Sam Worthington plays stuff very close to his vest. He's a very stoic character. It's all, you know, that, what Richie would call the inner monologue. It's like, what's going on inside his head? What's happening in his heart? And that's what we're really going for. And so it ranges from people understanding the process to people saying, oh, Sigourney voiced the part of Curie, which drives me absolutely apeshit. And that's basically why we've been pretty transparent about how this is done this time around. We kind of hit it on the earlier films. Sigourney didn't voice the part. She acted the part. She performed the part for over 18 months across the 2 movies, The Way of Water and Fire and Ash. And that's true of all the other actors as well. If you saw any character doing something in the film, somebody did it. It was either the actor or a stunt double. You know, that it's all human motion. It's all human emotion.
Yeah, before I saw the film, I actually saw the 2-part Disney Plus thing, and that's where you're really showing how the sausage is made, which kind of surprised me because I hadn't seen you do that before here. But I thought it was important, because it looked like a rehearsal hall with these actors. It looked like they could have been rehearsing a Broadway play or something.
I've been thinking a lot about acting for cinema, and you know, obviously we started photographing actors 130 years ago, and acting's been going on for 1,000 years before that. And it occurred to me that if you could just teleport players from the stage of the Globe Theater 500 years ago and bring them here now and show them, would you rather do this performance character, or would you rather stand in front of a camera and do the scene over and over and over again from all the different camera angles? They'd go, that's just fucking weird, right? this would make sense to us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, it's and they're all great actors, and I've seen them since interviewed talking about. They said this is probably the most challenging acting job they've had, you know, and you don't always see that.
In a good way. I mean, actors love to be challenged.
Yeah.
So we have the amazing folks here who did all the other stuff besides
Who did everything, and let's start with you, the production design here. So it's very unique kind of production design that you had to do here. What was your biggest challenge on this one, Phil?
I think the challenge is always to kind of hold up and protect the truth of the film, right? That's of course true for the actors as they do their emotional performances, but on our end, we have to provide them with the scenery, whether it be the proxy sets that we build for the performance capture process, or whether it be beautiful detailed sets that we shoot during live action. We provide them with the context that's necessary for them to give performances that are emotionally real, but also just physically real, right? I mean, how many movies do underwater motion capture? Well, I guess what, one, because we're crazy and we do things like that, because we don't want to pantomime and fake things. And so I would say it's that job of supporting, you know, the process that way, but also then supporting the way the designs look in the film, so that the world, the realism of the world that the actors and the story is creating is also matched by a kind of immersive zone that you go into when you watch these films, where if we did our job, you sort of feel that there's more world around every corner that you just happen not to see. It's a world that is detailed enough to have a life of its own, and whether that's the natural side of it or the mechanical side of it, it's all based on research and passionate investment into its truth.
I was interested in how you divided it up here with Dylan Cole.
Yeah, so we have two designers on the show. We repeated the formula from Avatar 1, but whereas that was focused a little more on, you know, the virtual production designer that was more on the organic, natural side, and live action. Here, you know, you can imagine looking at this film with the amount of scenery and the amount of world that you're looking at here. It's not like we could build all that, right? It all looks photoreal. It looks like we went and shot a live action movie on Pandora, which is what we want. But you know, we have to divide and conquer a little bit. But anyway, I ended up on my side. I'm sorry. Dylan handles basically Pandora, all things to do with the beautiful natural nature of the world, the flora, the fauna, the Na'vi cultural designs, and I handle basically all the evil crap, right? The Earth technologies, the laboratories, the vehicles, all the mean stuff that burns all
the cool shit, the helicopters and the ships and the subs.
So that's how we divide it.
To do, right? You like to do that.
It's a lot of it. You gotta be a little sick to enjoy this part of the job. It's like playing an actor that plays the bad guy. Like, you have to enjoy it, and you have to learn to see the bad guy from their perspective to invest cool details into what you do.
But you did a lot with one of my favorite characters in the Spider as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to imagine that Spider, on a production level, he's the biggest pain in the ass that you can imagine, right? Because everywhere he goes, live action sets follow, right? It's this live action kid who exists in a world that's filled with, you know, digital blue people and digital everything else. And so I think Dylan had to build about 150 postage stamp nature sets for Spider, some of which were tiny, which is, you know, a couple bushes, and some of which were massive, like enormous, beautifully sculpted logs, leading him down into the water tanks for the swamp sequence, and all that stuff, like 150 of them. And, you know, you don't think there's a lot of live action finished sets in here, but I think we built about 64 of them for the two different movies. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, how has your journey been here? Because you started as art directors, both of you, on the original Avatar 2009, and way before that to do the movie.
We did. I mean, we were essentially glorified illustrators. You know, we were, you know, trying to make really cool pictures to help design the original film. And as an honorific, we were awarded the title of concept art director, which was great. Which kind of gave us the chutzpah to go start to develop a production design career, each of us individually. And then at some point, we got the call from John to come and see Jim and talk about some new films. So it was great. It's a testament to the kind of family environment that Avatar is, that Jim, who could get any production designer on the planet to show up in 3 minutes for a meeting, looked at his own team and people that he was familiar with and promoted us from within. So we appreciate that.
I think everybody sitting up here has been on all 3 films, isn't that right?
Yeah.
You're all veterans.
Yeah, all veterans, 18-year process.
And no choice.
Wow. Deborah Scott, amazing. I saw somewhere that you designed 8,000 different illustrations.
There's probably more illustrations than that, but I would say probably around 2,000 samples. My process is a little bit different, right? So what we do is try to by Jim's, brilliant mind, we make the costumes in real life, right? This was the edict because you can tell when things aren't real. And especially if they're on an actor and it's influenced by their performance, that's key. And then the second part of my job, after we make all these beautiful things and we do all the testing and all the things that we have to do, we turn it over to our second set of the team, which is the VFX people that help bring it to life at Weta. So it's a gift for me to be on the movie as long as I am, to see the designs come to life. And also I would like to just say one more thing about the performance element. The gift of, I do live action too, so I kind of like your sets, by the way. They're pretty cool. But the gift for me is really the difference between straight live action and being able to do a film like this, a performance capture film, with real actors who didn't inhabit this world, is to be able to design as you watch the performance. On a live action movie, you give them a costume, they go off, they act. In this, like watching Una's performance come alive, so that we could go back in and say, hey, we're not done yet. We got more costumes to do for her. So that's an amazing process. You're just involved in a different way.
Well,
Can I just point out that Deborah's on the film for the duration, all the way through VFX post, and we're constantly fine tuning the costumes and even adding and making changes. So it's a multi-year process.
Yeah, and we go back to Titanic, so I might be.
Yeah, come to an accommodation, we'll get along.
We get
Take
along.
30 years.
I was gonna add to that also, that Deb actually builds a lot of the costumes, and people don't see that.
Not a lot.
A lot of
All.
all these costumes are built, which allows us to put them on actors and actually have them do the performance and
yeah,
understand.
very intricate
Yeah.
designs on all of them. I saw some of them at the Manhattan Beach Studio Museum that you have,
I also,
and
I
they're
also
there.
think the interesting thing about working with the VFX part of it is that as the costumes sit on a real body, it's the way that the air between the piece and the skin, the way something feels weighted or not weighted, the way it blows in the wind. And these are all things we test, right? So we know what we're doing when we go into it. And they are tasked with, as John used to say, ascribe to, they have to hit the level that everyone else does.
You had new challenges on this one, new characters, the Wind Traders and the incredible Una Chaplin and all the Ash clan too. So how did you approach those?
Well, we start with the script, of course, and then, Jim's vision is really so important. And then us guys and Dylan, we get together and world build. And as we do that, and then I get down to designing on paper, and then I get to go, the best part of my job is being in the workroom making these things, because that's where you can really make the real thing, right? And you can't draw it, you have to build it. So it's so much, I have so much gratitude for the people that work with their hands and work with me through the whole process, 2 films. And then, as Jim said, being able to follow it through the post is just, it's like the greatest gift, it really is.
I think Veron's headpiece is a great example of that. I mean, we tried to describe it on stage and then in final, but we just see it built. It became really easy to understand how it would, reflect in the light, and how it would literally describe her form properly. Because we were always holding this, broadly a shape for a silhouette. But once you see the real thing, it's crazy how detailed it is and beautiful. And the complexity of it, it gives you a massive advantage to see something in real life.
Yeah, because if you draw it in 2D, right, you're getting 2 dimensions. So when you build it, you're getting this incredible all the way around. So you can, with that piece, just gently twisting a feather, and watching. And what Jim really has taught me, this came to me the other day, in really succinct language, is to love the motion of a garment.
Right, and you've got to build it. You've got to either have the actor wear it or a body double for the actor wear it. Go through the motions of the scene, see how it falls, see how some of those beaded tops, they have weight, and they'll weight will fall away from the body, slam back against it. We'd even test all the wardrobe underwater,
Yeah.
in a strong current to see how it would blow, how it would interact with the hair and all the other things. So it was a very dynamic process. But you forgot the biggest bet noir of the whole costume design, the mask. Because it has to work on,
Yeah,
on
the
its
dive
head,
mask.
underwater.
We didn't want him to, you know. We also had really incredible people who could actually make it, so we just, the teams working together, and I think that's one of the wonderful things about what we all do, is that we hand off to each other. Like, when I need something from him, or he needs something from me, or the dive mask, perfect example, and they're gorgeous. They turned out beautiful, and you can see his face, and,
And he's alive.
and he could breathe.
And he's still on.
He's still alive.
And the headdress, you had to test that, I think, with wind machines,
Oh, yeah.
so that it would stay on.
Yeah. we
But
just-
cyclical
it's a marathon.
collaboration, I think it runs right the way down. I mean, it's constant. Look back through Jim, but each of us, the overlap is incredible when you think about it. We're in a very privileged position to be together for this long and be able to literally go, I know, I'll just walk down the hallway and talk to you. And it just becomes family, It's like, I think that's a very privileged thing to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, looping back to the performance chemistry, you've got to be able, the system has got to be able to see the markers. So Deb can't put all the wardrobe on somebody during the capture process. But if an actor needs something to work with, like Sigourney wanted a kind of a shawl or a cape that she wore when they traveled, and she kind of played as a teenager, kind of hiding for like her version of a hoodie. We had to come up with a non-including version of that. We had to come up with non-including versions of the wrong headdress and all of the other things. It's got to be accounted for. If it impacts the actor's performance in any way, or it's something they request, we've got to work that out.
That's interesting too, because you always hear, I talk to a lot of actors and they always say, I really get the character when I put the costume on, a lot of times here. And so in this case,
Well, that's where
We've
the
never
art
asked them to
comes from.
perform without a costume before, so they don't know that they could have done it anyway.
Yeah.
It's like what is it, Dumbo's feather, you know what I mean? He didn't really need it to fly.
But we did have to teach the kids, because they didn't know, right? So they didn't know what a loincloth felt like, or when they jumped down from, stage piece to stage piece. So it was a really informative process all the way along, and I think, like Sigourney was a beautiful example. She'd come up to my workroom and sort of just pick things up and look at them and hold them, and I think it really helped her immerse herself in the world, even if it wasn't her full costume.
yeah. Now, Steve Rivkin, right here, is one of 5 editors. The other one of them is sitting next to me, James Cameron, and then 3 others, and you. Can you explain a lot of times the editor will, not be on the set all the time and all of that, but you're involved right from the very beginning on this.
Well, 18 months of performance capture means we start right away, because the first stage of editing in an Avatar film is to cut the performances. So the whole film exists in performance edit at one time, which means you're looking at actors on a blank stage, no environment, the wardrobe will eventually be added virtually, but basically we're analyzing the performances, and sometimes with Jim's input of what takes he likes, we're even combining takes from different actors from different takes to create a perfect file of all of the best performances. Sometimes it gets divided up in pieces, but mainly that's the first stage of editing, and it's cut with reference cameras that basically document the data that's being recorded in the volume. And of course, there are the facial cameras that capture every nuance of facial performance. And that is ultimately realized fully at Weta. But in the meantime, we take these files and they're played back on the stage long after the actors are gone. Now, we're cutting with reference material. It's not the shots, and it's not necessarily cut the way the scene's going to be cut. It represents the performance edit, and that means when we go back with the actors gone, sometimes a year later, maybe even more, and Jim picks up the virtual camera, that's when the cinematography begins. That's when the virtual cinematography begins, and he creates the shots that go into making the scenes that make up the movie. So it's a 2-stage process. There are other stages added, but essentially the whole film is cut twice. So, and Richie and his team will proof the files before they go to Jim, make changes, exchange notes. I'll let him talk about the rough camera pass.
But I think there's an interesting thing, that the decoupling of cinematography from the performance allows you this really, really unique opportunity, which is to introduce editorial before there are ever shots. That's a crazy concept. That's just kind of fell out of the whole first process. That is
It's like Zen archery, right? Where
Yeah.
you train for a year without the arrow. Imagining where the arrow is going, right? So we worked literally for, a year and a half or more, imagining what the shots might be. Which, in a funny way, there's a purity of just really focusing on performance.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a leap of faith, and you don't know where, since you don't have the actual shots, you don't exactly know where the cuts are going to fall, right? So,
But any performance can create the coverage for the scene. So any single performance could be a close-up or a medium shot or a dolly or a crane. And so that liberates Jim to work exclusively with the actors during the production of the performance capture and not worry about lighting or dolly track or makeup or wardrobe. And then when we move to the virtual camera stage, he doesn't have to worry about the actors anymore. He can play the idealized performances.
they always hit their marks.
They always have their marks. They always
The
hold their
virtual
marks.
camera stage, they're the same every time.
But the impact of that statement is you guys get to edit the movie twice.
Right, and there's an incredible interaction that we have with Jim, Richie, when we're doing virtual cameras, where the editor is on set, we're cutting the scenes as they're being photographed in the virtual camera form, and it influences and inspires perhaps alternate ways to shoot. Like Jim will say, well, let's try this pattern, or you know what, this gives me an idea to maybe shoot this a different way, maybe start in close-up and do some tracking shot to go, but it's all doable as many times as he wants to explore that coverage.
Wow. Richie, so how did you merge Lightstorm and Weta here?
How do I didn't merge them, but they do. We do have them embedded actually. We have some of the Weta crew literally with us from the very beginning. The head of animation for Dan is the supervisor. We had one of the senior animators in Eric Reynolds embedded in the crew. So when we were doing creature development, we are literally doing it side by side. We'll start with some form of puppeteering to get the blocking in place, but then we're able to do motion vocabulary and exploration into creatures right there, on the stage and start to pop it into shots. It's an interesting one because what Steve was talking about was the creation of camera loads, moments in time. That they are these, sort of idealized, almost like play-like moments where you get to go in and cover it however you want. But that's inclusive of, basic effects and animation, anything that contributes to composition. Because that's ultimately what you shoot. A cameraman will respond to what's in front of them. So you can only create the shots where you have, enough compositional relevant material to really sculpt a shot. So once you do that, once we get to that point, and we have a second editorial phase, which Steve was very polite and jumped over it, but they do edit the movie completely twice. With Jim, once we get to a point where we have an approved scene, then there's the marriage of Weta, which is a scene, and we're to the frame. We are frame accurate when we leave the facility. Each shot is cut and measured to the frame so that there's no waste on the post side.
And it's the actual camera.
And it's the actual camera.
We always have the latitude to change it later, but we give Weta what we call a template. So we sort of do the first half of the process, and then Weta, and also I should point out ILM, do the second half of the process. Weta, of course, has the majority of the work. And Eric, you could speak to the race.
I was going to say that's what we hand off, and it really is. The environments go to Eric and all of the effects, and then Dan deals with the motion. We're in contact pretty much every day for sometimes 6-7 hours a day.
Yeah, and I'd say the walls between the different companies, between LEI and Weta and ILM, they sort of dissolve on this movie, right? We really try to work as one big unit, even between Weta and ILM, sharing information, sharing data, whatever we need to do to make sure everything flows across the system. And it really makes it a really seamless process because we can send animation back to Richie, or anything back and forth between us, which really just makes it it makes it so much easier to get things to Jim and have the whole process really seamless and just make it all great.
It truly is one thing.
And it's so important that
It's
those
one
systems, those systems speak to each other, right?
Yes.
Because the scenes that Richie and the team are working on at Lightstorm are quite, low res, lighter scenes with all those assets. And when we ingest, we need to know, the system needs to know exactly what those are. We don't want to go through those bills and work it out. Our systems speak to each other perfectly.
I think that's one of the key components. We're able to remove all the iterative process,
Mm-hmm.
or the front end iterative process, and to concentrate the energy and effort in getting those really, really great performances that we see in our actors, and spend the energy in putting it on screen and realizing the character and finding the emotion in it. And to be honest, while we're a spectacle movie, I love to think that it's the emotional connection that keeps the audience involved. That's the key.
Well, that's kind of the culmination for us, right, guys? I mean, we've been homing in on that goal
Yeah.
for 18 years.
Yeah.
On the first film, it was a giant prototype. It was kludged together. We didn't know it would really work. It was a giant leap of faith. Then we took 5 years to improve all the technology before we jumped into 2 and 3. And then we've incrementally continued to improve that pipeline since then.
I think one of the biggest
This one was
things
so
was-
good, right? Because we came directly off Way of Water
Yeah.
into this one, and we were rolling, right? We'd spent a lot of time. If you look at the facial system as an example, we spent so much time developing that on Way of Water, and then coming into this one with new characters, we hit the ground running. Like when we first saw her on, she looked amazing. She came out of the box looking great, and it was really thrilling to show you, Jim. I mean, obviously you knew what you had in that performance of Una, because you've been looking at that for years, but to show you
Ironically, I didn't know 100% of what I had
Yeah.
because, see, we work, when we're doing our virtual cameras, so we're creating this thing called a template that we took to Weta. And it's a way to watch the movie, and it's actually quite compelling. But we have a temporary face that we use, which we call the kabuki. And it's just we take the video from the head rig and we project it onto a blank face of the character. It works pretty well, but it misses a lot of the nuance of brow furrow and a lot of expressiveness that doesn't come through in that interim system. And when the wrong started coming back, we started seeing some of the first shots that were rolling off the production line from Weta. We were
pretty stellar. It was a
We
moment
were
that really
stunned.
was.
and how detailed she was. This is a tribute to Una, but it's also a tribute to the pipeline that we all collectively created.
The scalability, yeah. I think the scalability of the pipeline is really what gets us, because the tools were refined onto. We did the big leap forward between 1 and 2, and the tools were being refined onto, and we were learning as we went. But I think we've really hit our stride, and it's a rare privilege to make the movie, again, when you finish a movie, you go, I really know how to make it, and you get to go again. That never happens. Well, it happened. Again, and that really allowed us to hit our stride.
We had a schedule of work on this one, which is quite a rare thing, right? Because we knew, we knew what we were doing, and it was a real pleasure.
We talk a lot about Una because she's just a standout in this film, but really if you look back at some of the other characters too, like Jake and Materi in this film, in the Marui, when they're arguing back and forth, their performance just step up in this, and I think the extra detail that's in the facial in Materi and Jake, that subtlety in Sam's performance.
I think it's an all-best performance.
It is. It's amazing to come through.
Most complex.
It's great to see it all come together, and it's just because we were able to refine it so much more. We weren't reinventing the wheel in this film. We had a lot more experts at their field. Everyone up here and everyone back at all the different facilities, the 3,600 people had all done the film before.
There's nothing more thrilling for me as an editor when we make those selections of the performances. I think the emotion is told through the eyes of the actors. And the kabuki, as Jim described it, is a proxy. It gives us a sense of their eye movement and their mouth movement, but it's crude. To see what these amazing artists do to translate accurately the performance of our actors back onto these CG characters is phenomenal. And you see the eyes again, and it just moves me so much.
The best way to think of it is that it's CG technology being used as a form of makeup. No one would question it if you're watching, Star Trek and you've got Klingons with rubber foreheads and rubber ears and rubber chins and that sort of thing. It's like, okay, that's the actor, right? But people question this process because they don't understand it, which is why we're trying to be a little more transparent this time around. Because in an age of generative AI, nobody knows what's real and who's doing what and what the process is. And we've never used it. That's, I think, an important thing to think about here. We've never used it, used computer technology that way, to have a generative model, basically just create a novel image, a novel character out of nothingness. We are trying to emphasize that it's an actor-centric and artist-centric workflow. And I can't imagine myself, if I do another Avatar film, I can't imagine myself not doing it exactly the same way. Can't say that we might not augment with some Gen AI tools to speed up things like, blue screen and green screen using segmentation and things like that. But that's just in the weeds of the tool set. We'd never try to just conjure a character or a setting or anything like that. We would follow our same process. Because you get the quirkiness, you get the idiosyncrasy of the lived experience of the actor, and it just makes, to me, all the difference in the world. I think the fundamental question you guys probably should be asking yourself is, why do these whack jobs up here go through all these steps to make a movie? And the answer is, if I could shoot 10-foot-tall blue characters with cat ears and tails, and big golden eyes that big that move you and speak to your heart, I would just shoot it live action, guys. Trust me. Yeah. We go through all these steps and the associated expense because we create something that's a bit unique. You can't see it in another film. It doesn't do what this particular magic spell, the way it's cast, of creating this world, creating this kind of waking dream state with these compelling characters in it, and it allows you to go on their journey because there's no kind of uncanny valley dissociative effect, right? And that's why we do it, and it works. I mean, I don't think people have ever really quantified how an Avatar movie works. They always talk about, it's got no footprint in the zeitgeist. It's like, okay, that may be true in terms of our merchandising and our toys and our Legos and all that stuff. Can't compete with Star Wars. First of all, they had a 30-year head start. But there is a magic spell that these films cast, and it takes everything that everybody on this road does to make that happen. And it's intentional. It's by design. We've learned how to do it, and we know what we're doing.
Yeah. And many of And I just want to say before we go to the themes of this and what it says about the environment and how the humans have ruined the planet and now they're trying to manipulate the whole thing. You came up with this idea 30 years ago, didn't have the technology to do it, but how pertinent this movie is to what's going on, especially now, even since the last one came out 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We are endangered, and this is a warning.
Yes. He's doing great,
Well, I want to thank you all for coming out and giving them the insight into Avatar Fire and Ash.
You want to do more? Sure. We can talk about